league. He'll be our special guest. Had Harrison Smith on last week. Had a terrific show, full house as we've had every week at B52. And we'll talk with Irv about his rookie season, about facing the Cowboys at AT&T, and looking ahead to the Denver game coming up after that. And we'll hit NFL hot topics. And as I said, I always encourage people to get to B52 Burgers and Brew in Inver, Grove Heights, and Lakeville. Terrific menu, 25 varieties of burgers, great entrees and appetizers. B52 has Monday night specials and a fantastic Sunday brunch. So check out their website, B52 Burgers and Brew, and hope to see you there.
Like I said, I covered Jerry Jones, and like one of my first days of working in professional sports or covering professional sports was the press conference where Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys, and the entire state was in mourning because he was taking over. Here was this Arkansas oil guy with not a great reputation at that time, taking over the franchise and firing Tom Landry and getting rid of Gil Brandt. And even though the Cowboys needed to be turned over at that point, nobody really wanted to see it happen exactly this way. So Jerry was public enemy number one. Jimmy was a little bit of a public enemy, but it wasn't his fault he got hired. And Jerry was just gleeful, and he said, I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna have my hands on everything from socks to jocks. I mean, he just couldn't stop talking and saying goofy stuff like that. Obviously, he is a much more savvy businessman than anybody gave him credit for, but they haven't had great success on the field since he fired Jimmy Johnson. So just what's your overall view of Jerry, and do you have any good Jerry stories?
Yeah, I think that I always liked Jerry personally. I thought he was just one of those larger-than-life characters, and I've always been very good friends with his son, Steven, who I think is a very talented executive in the league, and sharp guy, and a good guy. But Jerry was always very nice to me over the years, and I liked him a lot. And I remember my visit to Dallas when we made the Herschel Walker trade early in Jerry's regime and Jimmy, and that particular trip always has stuck in my mind because I was there with Mike Lynn, the former GM, and Mike says to me, "Hey Jeff, I'm gonna go make this trade with Jerry. You sit in the meeting room and vote on the new commissioner." So I cast the vote for the Vikings to elect Paul Tagliabue commissioner while Mike is making the trade. And then we're on the plane later, and he says, "I made the deal for Herschel Walker." And of course, what I always say whenever I give a speech or anything, I had nothing to do with that trade. And so I asked Mike, I said, "Oh, what did we get for him?" He said, "We just gave a bunch of guys that we don't need." And he rattles off Darren Nelson and Jesse Solomon. And just several, Isaac Holt. And I said, "Well, that's like 5 starters."
Yeah.
But he said, "Oh, this guy's going to put us over the top." And I said, "Okay, sounds good." Now,
he did for one game.
Of course, Mike never mentioned the draft choices.
Right. Well, I mean, I'll quickly tell the story. I was covering the Cowboys, and when the deal first was announced, it was announced like that. It was, okay, these scrubs, or not scrubs, they were starters but not stars for Herschel Walker, and we all thought Jimmy was crazy. He traded his only good player, basically, at that point, because Michael Irvin was injured, and he hadn't gotten Aikman or Emmitt Smith yet, and the defense was really nobody. And we're walking down the hallway one day. It was me and Tim Kalishaw. We're covering the team for the Dallas Morning News. Kalishaw obviously went on to become kind of an ESPN TV star. And Jimmy pulls us into a side room, like the copier room, and goes, "You idiots, I'm getting the draft picks. I'm keeping all the draft picks. Then I'm going to send him another draft pick. I'll send him some lower draft picks so I keep the players. I'm getting all the players. I'm getting all the picks. This is going to set us on the right." And we're like, "Oh, crap, you're right. That's a pretty good deal."
Yeah, exactly right. And that's what we found out later, how that was going to work. And it basically worked out that way. And I think we got a couple of draft picks back out of the deal. We did pick Jake Reed with the third-round pick that we had gotten in return. But, wow, what a nightmare trade that ended up being for the franchise. And Herschel had that great debut game for us at the Metrodome. But it kind of went downhill from there, and Bernsey never really found a spot for him to make it work with the offense, and so it was just unfortunate. I learned a good lesson as a future GM. You're never really one player away. Even if you think you are, you're not.
Yeah.
So you got to build it and keep it building and not think that way. So, but yeah, otherwise, Jerry, as I said, I think they had certainly a lot of success business wise, and whatever they're maybe the most valued franchise in sports worldwide, perhaps, along with a couple soccer clubs in England, I guess, Manchester United. But anyway, he, as you said, it's been since I think 1996 that they've been in the Super Bowl. So it's been a kind of a big dry spell for the people down in Dallas that are very high expectations wise, and going into the season, there were high expectations for this team when you talk about how loaded they are talent wise, and so I don't know. I kind of get the impression sometimes that they're not as focused as they need to be as a team, and maybe that'll be the case. Probably not on a Sunday night on national TV,
Yeah.
but it certainly was the case when they went to the Jets this year. But I think it's going to be a tough game for the Vikings this Sunday. It just has a tough feel for me.
Yeah, and we're going to do a pick here in a second. Do want to remind you we have a deal with Bite Squad. Talk North is the promo code that'll get you your first delivery fee waived. But go to bitesquad.com. They might have a better deal in your area. And if you upload the Bite Squad app, it just makes the ordering really simple. Food, restaurant quality food, as if it just came out of the kitchen, showing up at your house makes life very easy. Bitesquad.com, Bite Squad the app. Promo code is Talk North, but there might be a better deal out for you if you check out their website. I think one of the things it's football, so there are a million different matchups. But one of the things I'm really going to be interested in is Ezekiel Elliott and that powerhouse offensive line up against the Vikings defensive front, which is very good, but other than maybe Linval Joseph, doesn't have a lot of bulk. How do you see that matchup?
I think that's going to be a real important matchup, as conversely will be Dalvin Cook running against that Dallas defense, and especially with the pursuit that they have with some of their linebackers, and talking about guys like Van Der Esch if he plays, and Sean Lee had a big game against the Giants, and Saquon Barkley. And so you know that Sean Lee was keying on Barkley. He's going to key on Dalvin Cook. And so how do they react from that? But yeah, that massive Dallas front will be a force to reckon with for the Vikings. And I think this is the kind of game where they really need some stout run support from all their guys. And it's going to be a big challenge for guys like Kendricks and Barr in particular to make plays on Zeke Elliott, and for Linval Joseph to be able to hold the line there, and Shamar Stephen too inside, and if they go outside on Hunter and Griffin, that'll be really a fascinating thing to watch, as you said, and then they got to deal with Dak Prescott's ability to be a dual threat quarterback, and we talked with Harrison Smith about that the other night, and that's a very viable option for Dallas too in this particular game. And something they didn't have to deal with last week with Matt Moore, with Mahomes out, but now this week with Prescott they do. And that will be a challenge. So really on both sides of the ball, a fascinating matchup and a really interesting game to watch and to see how it unfolds. But to me, the number one question is, how does Kirk Cousins perform under the bright lights and in a hostile environment with the pressure on to win a big game on the road against a quality team? Honestly, we really haven't seen that much, if at all, in the 2 years he's been here. Perhaps we saw it to a certain extent in the Green Bay tie last year, but Green Bay wasn't as good a team last year as they are this year. And saw it a little bit in Philadelphia last year. He played pretty well on the road, but again, not a night game, not a national game, and those have been the knocks on him. So to use his term, which we didn't hear in the press conference today, to use his term, to change the narrative, he's got to win a game like this.
Yep.
Or he's got to win against Seattle on a Monday night. I really feel like these next two road games, the next two primetime games, he's got to find a way to win one of these games. And because, they could probably win their last 4 home games, conceivably, get the 10 wins, maybe get in the playoffs, maybe not in a tough NFC. They're going to have to find a way to win maybe one more road game, win all their home games, get to 11-5. But if they were to somehow sneak out maybe 2 of these road wins between at Dallas, at Seattle, at the Chargers, who may be out of it by then, but they're kind of coming on, all of a sudden, if you're looking at 12-4, then you have a chance at the division title. I don't think they win the division 11-5. I know they don't win it at 10-6. 12-4, I think they have a shot if they beat Green Bay in that second to last game. But they got to win a road game, I think, to be kind of assured of being in that playoff group as long as they win all their home games, which is not going to be easy either because they still have Green Bay and Chicago.
Right. Let's do our picks. Once again, thank you to all our sponsors and all of our listeners. I think, I picked the Vikings to win every game this year, which makes me 6-2 as well as the team 6-2. The only pick I really regret was, I'm sorry, 6-3. So I guess I'm 6-3. I don't know. I might have picked Kansas City, so I might be actually worse than that. Anyway, the point is,
I think we both had the Vikings last week.
I think we both did. So I'm probably 5-4.
We figured Mahomes was out.
Yep. So I'm probably 5-4. Here's a game where I actually just can pick against the Vikings because I don't like the matchups. I think the Cowboys are going to be able to run the ball. I think Prescott is a tough quarterback to prepare for. They have a true number one receiver in Amari Cooper. They're playing at home. The atmosphere is going to favor the Cowboys. So I see a close game with the Cowboys winning. I'll say, I hate always picking scores in the 20s, but I am going to go with kind of a cliche pick, 26-22.
Yeah, I think I'd feel better about the Vikings' chances if Thielen was playing this week. And what happened last week when Thielen was out, they doubled Diggs most of the day, and it just they couldn't make enough plays in the passing game, and so I think it's going to be tough to win a game in Dallas against this team that has a lot of talent, that has a lot on the line, and I could see the Vikings finding a way to win. I wouldn't be shocked. I think it would take a couple of big turnovers to turn the tide. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Dallas too in this situation until I see Cousins win a game like this. And that's kind of hard to put the pressure on one guy on a roster with 53 players, but that's a $28 million guy. And he's got to win games like this. Had a chance last week, and maybe it wasn't all his fault. Maybe the play calling at the end wasn't great, or whatever. And I think Kevin Stefanski's done a good job overall this year.
I do too.
But I think that Cousins has to prove that he can rise to the occasion. Until I see that, I'm going Dallas. I'm going to call it 27-24.
All righty, we're right on the same page, which means we're probably both wrong. But we'll see.
Yes.
It'll be a fascinating game. I'm fired up to be there. I'm fired up to watch it, and then the schedule the rest of the way is going to be fascinating, game in and game out. Thanks to Jeff. Thanks to Brandon, our producer, and we'll talk to you next week.